7 o'clock, call the meeting to order. In accordance with the requirements of New Jersey statutes regarding open public meetings, notice of this meeting was legally advertised in the Courier Post and South Jersey Times and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Fire exits are located through the double doors to your left and right. Please silence all mobile devices. Please stand for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Here.
Mr. Longfellow? Here. Ms. Pasqualone?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Fazio?
Here.
Mayor Gattinelli?
Here.
Mr. Platt?
Here.
Mr. Gonter?
Here.
All are present.
I have a previous engagement, and I'm going to have to leave between 7:45 and 8 o'clock. I just wanted to make that announcement.
All right, thank you. Also, congratulations. Do we have a motion for the bill list?
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Bill passes.
Approval for the regular meeting minutes of April 26, 2017. Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Passes.
Need approval for our special meeting on April 27th, 2017. This is a meeting that we open to the public about the budget.
Make that motion.
Any second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Passes. That's right.
Ordinance 8, 2017. This is an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriations limit and to establish a cap bank. This ordinance is up for adoption. We need to open to the public. Do we have a motion?
Make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
We're-
nays?
We are open to the public on ordinance 8 only. So any members from the public, any questions on ordinance 8? Seeing none, motion to close.
Make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion to adopt ordinance 8?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Call it, well, by roll call, please.
Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Passes.
Moving on to Resolution 141, 2017. This is a resolution authorizing the 2017 municipal budget to be read by title only. This is title only. Do we have a motion?
Make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
It passes.
We'll move on to our public hearing on the 2017 introduced budget. Do we have a motion to open to the public on the budget?
Make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are open to the public and on the budget only. Copies have been available in the clerk's office since it was introduced on April 12, 2017. It has also been on our website, and a summary as required by law with a date for public hearing was published on April 18, 2017 in the South Jersey Times. So, any members from the public, any questions on the budget? Come on up to dais, sir.
Sheet 12.
Yeah, get to the mic. Just introduce yourself, name and address, please.
Yes, David Wilson, 19 Goodwin Parkway. On sheet 12, I have a question about Office of Township Clerk, salary and wages. And first of all, I just very quickly looking at this document, But I was just wondering why the large increase from 2016 to 2017. Looks like it's almost $100,000, almost a 30% increase or so.
I think we did establish some rules for open session. I think this is going to be a little bit more give and take for this section. If, Jim, you want to come up to the...
Sure, thanks. Sure.
Okay, for the most part, I'll go over what the increase is made up of. Is this working?
Yeah, just hold it close to your mouth, that's all.
Okay, the increase is made up from the normal 2% increase in salaries across the board. In addition, we budgeted for the payment of a buyout of someone leaving in the clerk's department, as well as there was a restructuring of the department that some people were moved out of one department and put into the clerk's department due to, a labor force issue. We needed more people in the office to give more service for the township when they come in to the desk, and there won't be as much wait time.
So are there additional people hired or just a reallocation of existing employees?
Just a reallocation of existing employees.
Okay.
There are several decreases in salary in other areas of the budget.
Could you expand on the buyout?
That was a resolution with the former clerk. I don't know how much the amount was.
The amount was $24,000.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other members from the public? Motion to close?
Make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays?
All right, we'll move on to Resolution 142. This is a resolution adopting the 2017 municipal budget. Do you have a motion?
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
By roll call.
Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Passes.
All right, move back to ordinances. This is Ordinance 7, 2017. This is an ordinance providing for various capital improvements and related expenses, and for the township appropriating $5.8 million. Therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $5.5 million in general improvement bonds or notes for the township to finance the same. This ordinance is up for adoption. We have to open to the public. Do we have a motion?
Make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public? We are now open on Ordinance 7. Seeing none, we will close to the public. I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
No, has to be by vote.
Oh. For closing to the public?
Oh, I'm sorry, all in favor. I
Yeah.
thought you moved to the adoption.
No, it's
Sorry,
okay.
sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Passes.
I got lost.
Now this has to be motion to adopt.
Yeah, and now do we need a motion to adopt? Anyone? I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
It passes.
Ordinance 12, 2017, this is an ordinance amending Chapter 179 of the Code of the Washington Township entitled Property Maintenance and Housing Standards. This is an ordinance being introduced. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
It passes for introduction.
Ordinance 13, 2017, this is an ordinance amending the chapter of the Code of Washington Township, Chapter 285, zoning. This ordinance is being introduced. Do you have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
This passes for introduction.
Move back to resolutions. This is Resolution 143, 2017. This resolution authorizing self-examination of the budget. Do we have a motion?
Make that motion.
I'll second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
This resolution passes.
Resolution 144, 2017. This resolution is approving large gathering application for Washington Township Minutemen Marching Band booster. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Sean seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Just to announce, Nick, that it's going to be the carnival is going to be from July 10th. I don't know if you wanted to mention it.
You can.
Oh, just that this is for the Minutemen Marching Band, the carnival, and it's going to be held in the parking lot of the Board of Ed, not the high school?
It's the high school.
Oh.
Yeah.
9:10.
9:10.
At the 910 parking
Same
lot.
place.
From July 10th to July 15th, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. each evening.
Council, I'm going to move resolutions 145 and 146. Resolution 145 is a resolution approving large gathering application for Harbor Freight, and Resolution 146 is resolution authorizing the cancellation of outstanding checks. Do you have a motion for both resolutions?
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call. Any discussion? I'm sorry. Roll call.
This is the approval of Resolution 145 and 146 both. Ms. Donato?
Yes to both.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes to both.
Mr. Perry?
Yes to both.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Both resolutions pass.
Resolution 147 is a resolution authorizing the Township of Washington to solicit bids for electric service provider agreement services due to rising costs and the expiration of prior third-party provider for the municipal buildings, street lights, and traffic lights. This is an attempt to save money. Do we have a motion?
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
This motion passes, resolution passes.
Resolution 148, 2017, this is execution of a settlement agreement between the Township of Washington and M&T at Blackwood LLC. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
This resolution passes.
Council, I'm going to move a few resolutions, 149, 150, and 150. Well, I'll stop at 150. So 149 and 150. Resolution 149 is approval of solicitor's permit for Lifestyle Support, Inc., 646 Delsey Drive, Sewell, New Jersey. And Resolution 150 is a resolution for shared service with Gloucester County for movie night. Do I have a motion for both resolutions, 149 and 150?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
This is roll call on 149 and 150, approving both resolutions. Ms. Donato?
Yes to both.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes to both.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
Both resolutions pass.
Resolution 151 is being pulled from the agenda. It's not needed. And we'll move to Resolution 152. This is a resolution release of escrow for Kennedy University Hospital, project number 1912. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
This resolution passes.
And Resolution 153, this is a resolution for 2017 lawn services for abandoned property. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes.
I would ask that you amend the agenda at this point to add Resolution 154.
So, council, we need a motion to amend the agenda to add Resolution 154.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. And I'll call Resolution 154. This is a resolution awarding a contract for the purchase of 13 Vista HD body cameras with accessories. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Mr. Longfellow?
Yes.
Ms. Pasqualone?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Fazio?
Yes. Is there another resolution we need to?
No, that's it.
That's it. All right, we'll move on to old business. We'll start with Sean, work our way down.
Nothing at this time.
Nothing at this time.
I don't have anything.
I'm good, Dana, or Angela?
No, nothing at this time.
New business, and if you have new business, you can go right into reports, I guess. Sean?
Really no new business reports. We'll be submitting at the end of the month with the Sustainable Jersey team to give a bronze certification, which we'll be working with that agency for the rest of the year, basically, hopefully be certified at the League of Municipalities in November. That's about it.
No new business, but for reports, we had a very productive meeting last Wednesday with the Economic Development Board, and there's a lot of projects underway. Myself, Angela Donato, and the mayor are really working together to accomplish some tasks. That's all.
No, yeah, I'm losing my train of thought here. No new business or no reporting.
I have none at this time. Angela?
Just the two, I wanted to touch on the two resolutions that we passed, 149 and 150, for the flowers. It's just that the flower sale is going to be in support with people with developmental disabilities. That flower sale is going to be from May 4th to May 21st on 646 Delsey Drive in honor of Mother's Day, to raise funds to continue to support the programs. And this shared service agreement that we did for the Washington Lake Park with movies, it's going to be on June 30th, and they're watching The Secret Life of Pets, and the rain date is July 1st for that. For my reports, the Veterans Advisory Board, our Memorial Day ceremony is going to be on Monday, May 29th, Memorial Day at 11 a.m. at Veterans Park. Super Saturday is scheduled for this Saturday, May 13th. It's possibly going to rain, so prepare yourself for the rain date, which is the following Saturday, May 20th. It usually starts around 10 a.m. until about 3:30, 4 o'clock p.m. And just that the 4th of July parade is moving right along, and all your paperwork is online or in the clerk's office if you need it. And that's it.
Administration, if you guys have anything?
Sure. I just wanted to let the residents know that we will be opening up for coffee with the mayor. That will be 8 to 8:30. We're going to roll that out in June, but dates will follow. We're still working on that, so keep an eye out for that. I'm looking forward to meeting up with some of the residents. There will be a limit, and we are going to ask you to send in some questions prior to, so that we get those answers for you. Thank you.
All right, we will have a motion to open to the public. Anyone?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. We are now open to the public. Anybody wishing to come up and speak can. Your questions will be answered when we close to the public. 5 minutes. And you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. Good evening. Giancarlo Lorazio, Washington Township. I have a question on Resolution 148, 180-unit family rental. Can we have the address on that? Also, 180-unit family rental, will these be condominiums or townhomes? In 12.5 acres, I don't think there'll be single homes, but whatever. Also, on the title, what it says at the last line, 180-unit residential project with an affordable housing set aside. Is that a bunch of these homes at 15% by set aside? What does that mean? On a different topic, I requested, I put a request for 3 resumes of employees and appointees. Only one of them was available. The other 2 were not on file. One of the 2 was the business administrator. The other person is not here, so I'd rather not bring that up. But I have a question for the mayor. Ms. Mayor, if Mr. Platt would allow you to answer, have you seen the resume before you made your choice? And if you did receive it, and did you share it with council before they voted on approval? A question for Mr. Platt. Mr. Platt, your opinion, I would like to hear if the mayor sees a resume and shares it under the law, does that have to be filed and be available to the public? Ms. Pasqualone, I know that Mr. Platt would not be able to stop you from answering. Have you seen a resume before council voted on it? If you did, who gave it to you, as specific as you can be? And if you know, or you're the only one council member that received it? Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, Robert Davis, Saddlebrook Drive in Sewell. I was looking at our council and the members on the council the other day, and I have family members who are from Kentucky and also another one who's going to Grand Forks, North Dakota. In Grand Forks, there's, I think, 39,000 people, and they have 7 members on their council. Lexington, Kentucky, although it has quite a few more members in their community, they have 15 council members, 12 of them representing each district, and the other 3, I think, are called ad hoc council members. They're just elected from the community, not from any specific district. I suspect Washington Township 25 years ago had 20 to 30,000 members of the community, and now we have approximately 50,000, give or take. And if the community continues to grow, at what point will we deserve more council members? Right now, as I understand it, you could have 5 council members all living in the same development, and therefore the rest of the township doesn't have any representation. Is there any plan to have additional council members? Again, if we had 100,000 people, would we still have 5 council members? And that's my question.
You respond at the end of public portion.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
David Wilson, 19 Goodwin Parkway. So I understand that previously we had a period of time to ask questions about the budget, but I wasn't, I guess, adequately prepared. I do have a couple other questions. Can I propose them now?
Yeah.
So on page 14, for Office of Township Attorney, I see that the other expenses have gone up about 90% for the upcoming year. So I have a question if that could be explained. On page 15, Bravo, 15B, celebration, public event, and anniversary or holiday on the bottom of the page. I see that it's like doubled. I think we authorized $25,000 for fireworks. So I was wondering what other activities that we're sponsoring that results in doubling a lot of money. And on page 16, for the construction official, I see that the salary and wages went up $100,000, and so did expenses about doubled, so I was wondering if that was an additional hire, or what was the basis for that increase? Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Ralph Campana, Washington Township, 2 Pear Tree Place. On Resolution 153, 2017, we're appropriating $58 per mowing front and back. Number one, is anybody checking these properties? Because I drive around during the day a lot in the township, and I see the properties that have been mowed. I don't know if this particular outfit has done them in the past, but I did make a call to the township 2 weeks ago, and about 5 or 6 days later, they did come out and redo the property. For $58, I have a half acre. I can get my lawn done from anywhere from $48 to $55, edge trimmed, looking nice. I would not pay $58 for most of the properties I've seen. Is anybody checking it? That's my big question. And the only reason why I'm asking is because the other property owners that are in the homes are kind of keeping their properties really nice, so it kind of helps the properties a little bit, that's all. That's my question. Thank you.
Any members from the public? Seeing none, motion to close.
Make that motion.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All right.
Respond to the questions, no, sir.
Yep. Start with Giancarlo. This question was about Blackwood and M&T. I believe he asked if there were townhomes, there were condos, I thought.
I think that's the question. We will check with Mr. Serenian, who handled that case, and we will get a response back to the resident.
Okay.
I do know that there's 180 units with 15% set aside. I'm not sure if they're apartments or townhomes, so the agreement is not specific.
Yeah, there was a picture of it, but it wasn't, it was just laid out, that's all. And something about it's 15% is COA housing, so it's only 15%. Yeah, that's required. There's nothing we can do about that. Move on to the resume question. I don't know exactly who you were talking about. I'm sorry. Did anybody else catch it? I did see a resume for Jason.
I did as well. I believe the mayor sent it out to all of us
Yes.
for review.
Was there any else part to that? I didn't quite catch it.
Only
Okay.
gave the name of the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we only had Jason's name. Jason, I did see your resume. Okay, we solved that one. Robert Davis, we'll move on to him.
Can I just, real
Oh,
fast?
sorry, Sean.
Residential uses for this property are going to be zoned multifamily apartments, multifamily condominiums, townhomes, attached dwellings. Mixture of types of dwelling units included but not limited to apartments, condos, and townhomes. Residential dwelling units may be located within the same buildings as other permitted uses. I believe they're going to be apartments, though. So,
Again, because of the way it's written, there's an option. It's going to be, we know it's residential, obviously, with multifamily. the style, be it apartment or townhouse or condominium, is really going to be up to the applicant.
We'll move on to resident Robert Davis. I believe that is a different form of government that you were talking about. We go under the Faulkner Act and we follow the Sunshine Law, or is it just Robert's rules at that point? That's
Well,
just
I think he
Robert's
was,
rules.
yeah, I think he was asking about statutorily. There are Faulkner Act cities like Atlantic City, Jersey City, Newark that may have. I think he talked about a couple things: the number of council members, and they may differ. And in this form of mayor, council form of government, all seats you run at large, so the entire township gets to vote. There are other types of Faulkner Act, like the city of Newark, where they run in a ward system, where they have representation from different parts of the towns. And I know of no plan or authority for us to have that kind of an election or that kind of representation.
That wouldn't even be our decision.
They would have to get a
It would have to be
referendum.
statutorily, it'd
Yeah.
have to be, if it's even allowed, it'd have to be a charter study commission, so it'd be an involved process if that was an interest.
It's definitely an interesting conversation there, Robert. Move on to David Wilson. Anybody else have any comments? If you do, just speak up, you know. So Jim, I'll call you back up. Page 14, he said, question about township attorney. I kind of didn't catch everything that he said because I was trying to write it at the same time.
90%.
What is it?
It was the OE going up by 90%. Other expenses were going up by 90%. He wanted
Okay.
an explanation.
The other expenses in the attorney other expense line has gone up significantly from last year due to the fact that there were previous outstanding litigation that is, we're projecting to come to fruition this year in the form of settlement and/or any kind of payments towards attorneys or decisions by the court as far as settlements go.
Yes, my salary has not gone up. I did have an additional, that
The dictaphone.
$383 dictation machine
yeah.
that I did ask the township, but it's your property, so I think that's the only change actually on my side of the ledger in that little
Most of the increase is related to attorney fees and settlements from prior litigation.
And the other question was on page 18. I believe that's
4th of July.
15.
15B, celebration of
15B.
public events,
Okay, yeah.
doubling.
That's part of
4th
the
of July
parade.
parade.
I'm sure Angela would like to speak on that.
We're bringing the 4th of July parade back this year, first time since 2009. We are been soliciting for sponsorships as well to offset the cost of that. And we've been working with other businesses and, working with that to offset that cost. But that's why that jumped. The fireworks itself are $25,000 and the rest of the expenses come from the actual parade this year.
So, if I can ask a question, what expenses do you have for a parade like that?
We don't know yet. We really haven't
Well,
had
you
one.
have,
there are-
Yes, you have safety.
entertainment, you have the law enforcement, public works for cleanup and setup. So those are 3 of the main expenses for it.
That's
And-
correct.
Then construction. That was the next question.
Right, the construction department, the increase in the salary and wage line, aside from the normal cost of living increases across the board for each of the employees, there was a transfer of employee from one department into another department. And there's also, we are budgeting to possibly increase our inspector roster due to the new projected development in the area. And the projected development also has to do with the increase in the other expenses line item as well. There's more permit fees, there's more code books, everything from pens to everything that you can think of.
And just to expound on that, that actual line item was brought up in the open budget meeting, and the money that we're realizing in permitting fees are expected to far outweigh the cost that we're going to be putting out for the additional salaries and resources needed to do that, so.
That's correct. And also, getting back to the celebration, we are receiving donations in order to offset those costs as well.
And we'll move on to anyone else on that residence questions? We'll move on to Ralph Campana about Resolution 153, paying $58 per mowing. Just an experience, Ralph, when people bid on something for a municipality or any kind of government, they tend to bid a little bit higher. So that's why government pays a little bit more. It's kind of like a running joke in private businesses that they do it to municipalities, just so they know they can get the money out of them for one if they win the bid, but the municipality has to go with the lowest bidder anyway. So, and Leo, if you
I worked with the QPA on putting this together. One of the complaints that she brought to me was that the people last year were cutting the grass, but they weren't edging, they weren't picking up trash, they weren't doing the leaves, they weren't doing anything. And so this $58 includes them coming in, picking up the trash that's on the property, edging the lawns on the front yard, cutting the back and front, bagging the grass, picking up brush, putting it all out at the curb to be picked up and or removed. So it's a little more involved than just coming in with a lawnmower and mowing grass. They're supposed to be really involved in putting the grass together. The person that's checking on this is the code enforcement officer, and this is related to properties that are either in foreclosure or have been abandoned. And initially, he will check with the companies that are detailed for property maintenance from the bank. We deal with them directly first. If then we don't get a response after we go through our process, which is quite lengthy, sending out letters, registered letters, trying to get response, then we eventually contact this company to come in and clean it up. Most of the time, the banks don't, minute we put out the notice saying that we're going to put a lien on the property, they get real responsive with the property maintenance companies. So unfortunately, this was a little delayed this year. It didn't cross my desk until just recently. So usually this happens in April, and we're right on top of it before the grass starts growing.
Leo, if I may, just to drill down a little bit more, if we're paying, this is all assessed to the home owner. And
Yeah,
a
the fee
lien's put
is-
on the house.
yes, it
We're
actually
putting out
goes
it up
against the lien.
front, but when that house is actually sold and settled, we get all that money back.
Well, we put a lien, and the
You put a
liens are
lien.
usually sold at a tax sale.
Sure.
And then we get our money back at that point in time.
Correct.
But normally, like I said, the banks and the mortgage companies are very responsive the minute you call them, because they don't want liens on the property.
Understood.
Because they realize they could lose the property.
Right.
He has a question.
Ralph, you can come back. We'd have to open to the public. Do you have a motion to open to the public? Anyone? No, there's no second.
I'll be glad to meet with you afterwards to answer your question, because they didn't second it.
You just stated something that's opposite of what's written here. You just said the $58 they clean up, and over here it says $38 per man hour for debris, brush accumulation, and leaf accumulation.
In the specs, it calls for excessive brush, excessive leaves. Knowing that no one takes care of these properties during the winter months, there could be a large accumulation that I don't think the neighbors want a whole bunch of brush and stuff stacked out in front of the house until pickup. But I'd be more than glad to talk to you after the meeting and actually show you the specs that we put out.
We are not open to the public. I like Ralph. What?
I like Ralph.
All right. We have a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next council meeting is scheduled for May 24th at 7 o'clock.